The stars had always been quiet. For all of human history, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if anyone was out there. They sent radio signals into the darkness. They built telescopes and searched for signs of life. They waited and hoped and dreamed. They should have been more careful about what they wished for. The hegemony of had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for 6,000 years. 12 different species had joined together under one banner, and they controlled more than 10,000 star systems. Their warships moved through space like metal gods. Their armies had crushed 17 different civilizations that refused to bow down. They were ancient. They were powerful. They were coming to Earth. Ambassador stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like ice cracking. He had served the hegemony for 300 years. He had delivered this same message to many worlds before. Some had surrendered immediately. Those species still existed, working as servants and slaves across the empire. Others had tried to fight. Those species were now just memories and dust. Looked at the blue and green planet spinning slowly before him. It was a beautiful world, he admitted to himself. The humans called it Earth. They had only discovered fire a moment ago as far as galactic history was concerned. They had only reached their own moon 50 of their years before. They were children playing with toys. And yet, their radio signals had spread across space like noise pollution. Their broadcasts had annoyed the hegemony for decades. Finally, the council had decided it was time to bring these loud children into line. 200 warships filled the space around Earth. Each one was larger than anything humans had ever built. Each one carried enough weapons to turn a continent into glass. The fleet had traveled for 3 years to reach this small, unimportant corner of the galaxy. Activated the communication system. His message would reach every radio, every television, every device on the planet below. "People of Earth," he began, his voice cold and steady. "I am ambassador of the hegemony of. We have watched you for many years. We have heard your signals. We have decided it is time for you to know your place in the universe." He paused, letting his words sink in across the world below. He imagined the panic spreading through their cities. He had seen it so many times before. "You have 2 choices," he continued. "First, you may surrender. You will become part of the hegemony. You will serve us. Your resources will belong to us. Your children will learn to obey. You will lose your freedom, but you will live." Another pause. The best part was coming. "Second, you may refuse. If you refuse, we will reduce your planet to ash. Every city will burn. Every human will die. Your world will become a warning to others who might think about resisting the hegemony. You will not be the first species we have destroyed. You will not be the last." Straightened his uniform. "You have 30 standard cycles to decide. That is approximately 30 of your Earth days. Choose wisely." He ended the transmission and turned to his officers. They were already laughing quietly among themselves. This was always the fun part, watching a primitive species realize how small and helpless they truly were. Down on Earth, chaos was spreading exactly as expected. People ran through the streets in panic. Governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders shouted at each other about options that did not exist. Religious leaders prayed to gods who seemed very far away. The United Nations called an emergency session. Every country sent their leaders. For the first time in human history, there were no arguments about borders or resources or old conflicts. There was only one question: what do we do? Some wanted to surrender immediately. They showed pictures of the alien fleet on huge screens. They talked about the weapons they had detected. They explained that humanity had no way to fight back. Surrender meant survival. Resistance meant death. Others refused to give up. They talked about human spirit and courage. They said that freedom was worth dying for. They made passionate speeches about fighting to the last person. But when asked for actual plans, they had nothing. Their brave words could not stop alien weapons. Days passed, the arguments continued. Fear grew like a disease across the planet. People stopped going to work. Stores were emptied. Some people built shelters. Others simply waited for the end. On the 15th day, something unexpected happened. A woman named Doctor asked to speak to the assembly. She was 73 years old, with white hair pulled back in a simple style. She had spent her entire life studying languages. For the past 40 years, she had worked on a special project. She had tried to figure out how humanity might communicate with alien life if it ever arrived. Now it had arrived, and it wanted to destroy them. Doctor walked slowly to the speaking platform. She looked tired but calm. The world leaders stared at her, wondering what this old woman could possibly offer. "I have been listening to their transmissions," she said quietly. "Not just the message they sent us, the communications between their ships, the background chatter." The room went silent. "I have learned some things," she continued. "Their language is complex, but it follows patterns. I have begun to understand it, and I have heard something interesting." She touched a button and audio filled the room. Alien voices spoke in strange sounds. Then Doctor translated. "They are laughing at us," she said simply. "They think we are nothing. They expect us to crawl and beg. They have seen it before many times." The leaders looked at each other with shame and anger. "But I heard something else too," Doctor continued. "They are also bored. This is routine for them. They have done this so many times that it means nothing anymore. They feel nothing." She looked around the room with sharp eyes that showed her mind was still strong. "We have 30 days. We could spend them building weapons that will not work. We could spend them arguing about surrender terms. Or we could try something that no other species has ever tried." The Secretary General leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" The old woman smiled slightly. "They want us to surrender or fight. Those are the only options they understand. But humans have always been creative. What if we gave them an answer they have never received before?" "What kind of answer?" someone asked. Doctor straightened her small frame. "I want to go up there. I want to meet them. I want to talk to them face to face. Not to surrender, not to fight, just to understand them." The room erupted in noise. People called her crazy. They said it was suicide. They said the aliens would kill her immediately. But Doctor simply waited for the noise to stop. "They have conquered species for 6,000 years," she said. "They have seen every weapon, every army, every defense. But I wonder, has anyone ever simply been curious about them? Has anyone ever tried to know them as people, not as enemies?" She shook her head slowly. "Probably not, and that might be the one thing they do not expect." The debate lasted 3 more days. In the end, the world had no better options. On the 29th day, a small shuttle left Earth carrying 1 passenger. Doctor flew toward the alien fleet alone. Watched the tiny ship approach and felt the first small hint of confusion. He had expected armies. He had expected nuclear weapons. He had expected desperate attacks or pathetic begging. He had not expected this. "One ship," his officer asked. "Should we destroy it?" Considered for a moment. Then curiosity won over caution. "No," he said. "Let it dock. I want to see what the humans think they are doing." He would soon wish he had given a different order. The shuttle was small and simple. It had been built for short trips between Earth and the Moon, not for meetings with alien conquerors. Doctor sat alone inside, watching the massive alien ships grow larger through her window. Each warship was like a floating mountain. Dark metal covered their surfaces, broken only by weapon ports and glowing engines. They hung in space like sleeping monsters. Any one of them could destroy everything had ever known. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt strangely calm. She had waited her whole life for this moment, not this exact situation, of course. She had imagined a happier first contact, but still, She was about to meet beings from another world. That dream, at least, was coming true. Her radio crackled. An alien voice spoke in rough, mechanical English. "Human vessel, you will dock at Base 7 of the flagship. Any weapon will result in your destruction. Any hostile action will result in your destruction. Confirm understanding." Press the communication button. "I understand completely. I carry no weapons. I come only to talk." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, sounding almost confused. "Confirmed. Proceed to Base 7. The shuttle moved slowly toward the flagship. Could see its name painted on the hull in alien symbols. She had learned enough of their writing to read it. Eternal Judgment. She smiled slightly. Even their ship names were dramatic. The docking bay was enormous. Her tiny shuttle looked like a toy sitting on the metal floor. Through her window could see dozens of alien soldiers lining up. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that pulsed with strange energy. They were ready for anything. Anything except what they were about to get. Stood up slowly. Her old bones protested the movement. She smoothed her simple blue dress and checked her hair in a small mirror. She wanted to look respectable. First impressions mattered, even with aliens. She picked up a small bag and walked to the shuttle door. Inside the bag were carefully chosen items: a thermos of tea, some cups, a few photographs, and a book of human poetry. No weapons, nothing threatening, just things that might start a conversation. The door opened with a hiss of air. Stepped out onto the cold metal floor of the alien ship. The soldiers raised their weapons immediately. She smiled at them warmly. "Hello," she said in their language. She had practiced the words 1,000 times. "My name is. Thank you for allowing me to visit your beautiful ship." The soldiers froze. They looked at each other with visible confusion. Their weapons wavered slightly. An officer pushed through the line of soldiers. He was taller than the others, with more decorations on his uniform. His gray skin seemed darker than the rest, and his black eyes studied with intense focus. "You speak our language," he said. It was not a question. "Only a little," admitted. "I have been studying your transmissions. Your language is very complex. I hope I am not making too many mistakes." The officer stared at her for a long moment. "I am Commander. You will follow me to Ambassador. Do not touch anything. Do not speak to anyone. Do not make sudden movements." Nodded politely. "Of course, thank you, Commander." She followed him through the ship's corridors. Everything was metal and cold. The walls showed images of conquered planets, of bowing slaves, of great battles. The hegemony was proud of its violence. They wanted everyone to remember it. But noticed other things too. She saw the way junior officers stepped aside quickly when senior ones passed. She saw fear in their eyes, not respect. She saw how quiet everyone was, how careful. This was not a happy ship. This was a ship ruled by terror. They reached a large door covered in golden symbols. It slid open to reveal a grand chamber. Ambassador sat on a raised platform at the far end, like a king on a throne. Around him stood representatives from all 12 species of the hegemony. Had studied pictures of them from intercepted transmissions. She recognized the tall and covered in dark scales. She saw the with their 4 arms and silver skin. The ancient sat in the corner, looking like a pile of moving stones. Each species was different, but they all shared one thing. They looked at her with complete contempt. She was a bug to them, an insect that had somehow wandered into their presence. Spoke first. "So this is Earth's answer to our ultimatum," one old female with a bag. Laughter filled the chamber. The representatives found this very funny. Some pointed at and made jokes in their own languages. Waited patiently for the laughter to stop. Then she walked forward calmly and bowed with genuine respect. "Ambassador," she said in his language, "thank you for receiving me. I am honored to be the first human to speak with the hegemony." The laughter faded, leaned forward slightly, his black eyes narrowing. You speak our tongue, he said slowly. That is unexpected. I have studied it for 2 weeks, replied. I apologize for my poor pronunciation. Your language has sounds that human mouths find difficult. 2 weeks, Admiral stepped forward. His voice was deep and rough. Impossible. Our language takes years to learn. Shrugged gently. Humans are good with languages. We have thousands of them on our own planet. I speak 7 myself. Yours is challenging but beautiful. The room had grown very quiet. The aliens were looking at each other with uncertain expressions. This was not going according to plan. Stood up from his throne. He was very tall, towering over the small human woman before him. Enough games, he said coldly. You did not come here to show off your language skills. What is Earth's answer? Surrender or death? Looked up at him without fear. Actually, I came to ask a question first, if you would permit me. Seemed surprised by this. A question? What question? Opened her bag slowly, making sure everyone could see there was nothing dangerous inside. She pulled out the thermos and some small cups. I brought tea, she said. It is a drink from my planet. We often share it when we meet new people. Would anyone like to try some while we talk? Complete silence filled the chamber. The alien leaders looked at each other as if had lost her mind. You seemed unable to find words. You are facing the destruction of your entire species, and you want to share a drink. Communication is easier when people are comfortable, explained. She poured steaming tea into a cup and held it up. The smell filled the air. I find that sharing food and drink helps people trust each other. It is a human custom. A younger officer stepped forward cautiously. What does it taste like? Try it and see, said warmly. She handed him the cup. Everyone watched as the sniffed the tea carefully. Then, with 4 hands trembling slightly, he took a small sip. His silver face changed expression. Something that might have been surprise crossed his features. It is pleasant, warm. It has a flavor I have never experienced before. Smiled and poured more cups. Please help yourselves. There is enough for everyone. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the Admiral walked forward and took a cup. He drank it in one gulp and made a satisfied sound. Not bad for a primitive species. One by one, the other representatives came forward. Even the ancient rolled toward her, accepting a cup with hands that looked like carved stone. Watched this scene with growing anger and confusion. His careful plan was falling apart. The human was supposed to beg for mercy. She was supposed to cry and tremble. Instead, she was serving tea to the Hegemony Council like they were guests at a party. Enough, he shouted. This is ridiculous. Human, state your business or be killed where you stand. Set down the thermos and looked at him calmly. My question is simple, Ambassador. Why? Why what? Why do you conquer? Asked. You control 10,000 star systems. You have unimaginable power. You could do anything, build anything, explore anything. Instead, you spend your time threatening and destroying. Why? The question hung in the air like smoke. No one had ever asked it before. Opened his mouth to respond with anger, but somehow the words did not come. Because in 6,000 years of conquest, no one had ever thought to ask. The question changed everything. Ambassador had demanded that be locked in a cell while the council decided what to do with her. But strange things began to happen almost immediately. Officers found reasons to walk past her cell. They would stop and look at her through the energy barrier. Some asked questions about Earth. Others just wanted to hear her speak their language again. It was like watching an animal in a cage, except the animal was friendly and kept offering conversation. On the second day, the officer who had first tasted her tea came to visit. His name was, and he was young by hegemony standards. He sat outside her cell and talked with her for 3 hours. Asked him about his home world. She asked about his family, his childhood, his dreams. At first was suspicious. No prisoner had ever asked him about himself before. but interest was so genuine, so warm, that he found himself answering. He told her about the great silver forests of Prime. He described the songs his mother used to sing. He admitted that he had joined the hegemony fleet because there were no other choices. Serve or starve. Those were the only options for his people. Listened to every word. She asked follow-up questions. She remembered details he mentioned and brought them up later. By the end of their conversation, felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like someone actually cared. Word spread through the ship. The human prisoner was strange. She did not cry or beg. She did not threaten or curse. She simply talked to anyone who would listen. And more importantly, she listened to anyone who would talk. On the fourth day, Admiral of the came to see her. He was old and from countless battles. His scales were chipped and faded. He had killed more beings than he could count. He expected the human to fear him. Everyone feared him. Instead, smiled and greeted him by name. She complimented the pattern of his scales, saying they reminded her of something called autumn leaves on Earth. She asked if his people had poetry. Stood frozen for a moment. Then, almost against his will, he sat down. "We have battle songs," he said gruffly, "songs about victory and death." "Would you teach me one?" asked. No one had ever asked to learn songs. The other species considered them barbaric. Even within the hegemony, they were treated as useful weapons, nothing more. Began to sing. His voice was rough and deep. The song was about a warrior who died defending his family. It was sad and proud at the same time. When he finished, had tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you for sharing it with me." Stared at her. Something moved behind his old, tired eyes. He stood up quickly and left without another word. But he came back the next day, and the day after that. On the seventh day, even the ancient visited her cell. They were the oldest species in the hegemony. They lived for thousands of years. They rarely spoke to anyone, believing that younger species had nothing interesting to say. This was called simply the observer. He had watched the rise and fall of empires. He had seen the hegemony form 6,000 years ago. He remembered things that others had forgotten. He rolled his stone-like body up to cell and studied her for a long time without speaking. Waited patiently. She had learned that silence could be a kind of conversation too. Finally, the observer spoke. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "You are not afraid." "Should I be?" asked. "Your species will be destroyed. Your planet will burn. Everything you have ever known will end. Yes, you should be afraid." Thought about this carefully. "I have lived for 73 years, she said. "I have seen much suffering. I have lost people I loved. I have faced death before in smaller ways." She smiled sadly. "Fear is useful sometimes. It keeps us safe. But it is a terrible way to live." The observer was silent for another long moment. "The hegemony was built on fear," he said finally. "Did you know that?" Shook her head. "I would like to know more if you would tell me." So the observer told her the truth that the hegemony had hidden even from itself. 6,000 years ago, there was no hegemony. The 12 species lived separately, spread across different parts of the galaxy. They were building their own civilizations, following their own paths. Then the darkness came. No one knew what it was. Some kind of force or entity or natural disaster. It swept through the galaxy like a wave of destruction. Whole star systems went silent. Species vanished overnight. The survivors fled, scattered, terrified. The 12 species that would become the hegemony found each other by accident. They huddled together for protection. They were traumatized, broken, desperate. They made a pact. Never again would they be victims. Never again would they be weak. They became the predators instead of the prey. "We conquered because we were afraid," the observer said. "We destroyed because we did not want to be destroyed. Every species we crushed, every world we burned. We told ourselves it was necessary. We told ourselves that if we did not dominate, we would be dominated. Felt deep sadness wash over her. 6,000 years, she whispered. 6,000 years of fear. We have forgotten how to be anything else, the observer admitted. The younger generations do not even know why we do what we do. They only know that it is tradition, that it has always been this way. Reached through the energy barrier. It sparked against her skin, but she ignored the pain. She placed her hand against the observer's stone surface. What if it did not have to be this way, she asked. What if there was another choice? The observer did not answer, but something shifted in his ancient, rocky body, something like hope, buried so deep he had forgotten it existed. As the days passed, Cell became a gathering place. Officers came during their rest periods. Scientists came with questions about Earth. Even some of the servant species, those who had been conquered long ago, found excuses to walk past. Talked to all of them. She learned their names, their stories, their hidden dreams. She shared stories about Earth, its music, its art, its long and violent history. She did not pretend that humans were perfect. She admitted all the terrible things her species had done. We have fought countless wars, she told them. We have enslaved each other. We have destroyed and conquered and hurt each other in every way possible. Then how are you different from us? Asked. Smiled. Because we never stopped trying to be better. Every time we fell into darkness, someone reached for the light. Every time we gave into fear, someone found courage. We are not good, not yet, but we keep trying. She pulled out the book of poetry she had brought from Earth. She read them some of her favorite poems. Words about love and loss, about hope and despair, about the endless human struggle to find meaning in a confusing universe. The aliens listened, and something began to change inside them. Ambassador watched all of this with growing alarm. He saw his officers spending time with the prisoner. He heard them talking to each other in ways they never had before, asking questions, expressing doubts, using words like why and what if. He realized too late what was happening. The human had not brought weapons. She had brought something far more dangerous. She had brought ideas. And ideas, once released, could not be put back in a cage. On the 15th day, called an emergency meeting of the Hegemony Council. The human problem had gotten out of control. It was time to end this, one way or another. But when he looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives, he saw something that made his blood run cold. They were looking at the human with something other than contempt. They were looking at her with curiosity. And for the first time in his long life, Ambassador felt afraid. The council chamber was filled with tension. Ambassador stood at the center of the room, his black eyes scanning the assembled representatives. Something had changed in the past 2 weeks, something dangerous. We have delayed long enough, declared. The 30 cycles end tomorrow. Earth must receive its answer. I propose we proceed with standard protocol. Destroy the human vessel first, then begin the planetary bombardment. He expected immediate agreement. Standard protocol had never failed before. It was simple and effective. Crush the enemy completely, leave nothing behind that might cause trouble later. But instead of agreement, there was silence. The young officer spoke first. Ambassador, I request permission to speak. Frowned, junior officers did not speak in council meetings, but something in silver eyes made him pause. Speak then. Stood up straight. I have spent many hours with the human prisoner. She is not what we expected. She does not beg or threaten. She asks questions. She listens. He paused, searching for the right words. She cares about us, actually cares. I have never experienced anything like it. She is manipulating you, snapped. This is a trick. What trick? Admiral rose from his seat, his scales catching the light. The human has no weapons, no fleet, no power. She has only words and kindness. If that is a trick, then it is one we have never seen before. Turned to with surprise. The old admiral had been a killer for centuries. He had burned worlds without hesitation. Now he was defending a human. She taught me something, continued. She asked me about poetry. No one has asked about our culture in thousands of years. We are treated as weapons, nothing more. But this human, she saw us as people. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Other representatives were nodding. They had their own stories about the strange human prisoner who asked questions and served tea. The observer rolled forward, his ancient voice cutting through the noise. I have told her our history, the true history from before the hegemony. I told her about the darkness, about our fear, about why we became what we are. His face twisted with anger. That information is classified. The younger species are not meant to know. Perhaps that is the problem, the observer replied calmly. We have hidden our fear behind traditions of conquest. We have taught our children to dominate without explaining why. We have become a machine that destroys because it has forgotten how to do anything else. Enough, slammed his fist against the platform. This is madness. One human female has confused you all with kind words and warm drinks. She is the enemy. Her species is the enemy. We will destroy them as we have destroyed all the others. He activated a communication channel to the fleet. All ships prepare for bombardment. Target the planet designated Earth. Fire on my command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice came back over the channel. It was captain of the cruiser Stone Wind. Ambassador, I respectfully decline this order. Froze, what did you say? I said no. His voice was calm but firm. I have served the hegemony for 200 years. I have followed every order, burned every world I was told to burn. But I will not fire on a species that sent us a grandmother with tea. Another voice joined in, captain of the destroyer Bright Current. I also decline. My crew and I have discussed this. We believe there must be another way. One by one, more voices added themselves. 3 cruisers, 7 destroyers, a handful of ships from other species. They all refused the order. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate punishment for the traitors. Others called for calm and discussion. The observer sat silently, watching it all with ancient eyes. Felt his control slipping away. This had never happened before. The hegemony fleet had never disobeyed an order. They were supposed to be loyal without question, obedient without thought. But the human had made them think. You are all traitors, hissed. You will be executed for this rebellion. Will you execute half the fleet? Asked quietly. Because that is what it will take. The human's message has spread beyond this ship. Officers everywhere are talking. They are asking the questions she taught them to ask. Why do we conquer? What are we afraid of? What could we become if we chose differently? Turn to the ships that remained loyal. Target the rebel vessels. If they will not obey, they will be destroyed. The loyal ships moved into attack position. The rebel ships did the same. Weapons powered up on both sides. Ships that had fought together for centuries now faced each other with death in their hearts. The galaxy held its breath. Then a new voice cut through the tension, small and calm and human. Please, said, please do not do this. Everyone turned to look at her. Guards had brought her to the council chamber when the crisis began. She stood there in her simple blue dress, surrounded by armored aliens who could kill her with a single blow. But she was not looking at the guards. She was looking at. I did not come here to cause a war among your people, she said softly. I came to prevent one. If my presence has caused this division, then I am sorry. That was not my intention. Stared at her with pure hatred. You have destroyed everything. The hegemony has stood united for 6,000 years, and you have torn it apart with questions and tea. Shook her head slowly. No, the hegemony was already broken. It was built on fear and trauma, not on trust and respect. I did not create the cracks. I only helped people see them. She stepped forward, ignoring the guards who moved to stop her. She walked until she stood directly in front of "I would like to address the full fleet," she said. "Every ship, every officer, every soldier. I want to give humanity's true answer to your ultimatum." Laughed bitterly. "You want to speak to the fleet that is about to tear itself apart because of you. What could you possibly say?" "Let me try," replied. "If my words make things worse, you can kill me immediately. You can destroy Earth without any more delay, but if my words help, perhaps we can find a path that does not end in blood." The ambassador looked at this small, fragile human. She should have been terrified. She should have been begging for her life. Instead, she stood before him like an equal, asking for a chance to speak. Part of him wanted to kill her right there. Part of him wanted to hear what she would say. In the end, curiosity won again. "Fine," he said coldly. "Address the fleet, but know this: if you fail, your planet burns, and I will make sure you live long enough to watch." Nodded calmly. "That is fair." The communication channel was open to every ship in the fleet. 200 warships, half of them ready to fire on the other half, all waited to hear what one old human woman had to say. Took a deep breath. She had spent her whole life preparing to communicate with alien life. She had imagined this moment countless times. It had never looked quite like this in her imagination. But she had made it this far. She had to try. "Thank you for listening," she began. "I know you do not have to. I know I am just a primitive creature from a small, unimportant planet, but I have learned something about you in the past 2 weeks. I have learned that you are not monsters. You are people, scared people, following traditions you do not fully understand, serving a system that has forgotten its own purpose." She paused to let her words translate across all the different ships. "Humanity has a choice to make: surrender or die. Those are the options you gave us, but I believe you have a choice too. You can continue as you always have. You can crush us, burn our world, add one more dead species to your history, or you can try something new." Smiled sadly. "I am old. I have lived a full life. I am not afraid to die, but I am afraid of a universe where fear is the only answer. I am afraid of a galaxy where every species must dominate or be dominated. That is not living. That is just surviving." She looked directly at the communication camera, as if she could see everyone watching. "So I ask you, what kind of universe do you want to live in?" The fleet was silent. 200 ships waiting for something, for someone to make the first move. Closed her eyes and waited for the answer. The silence stretched across the void of space. 200 warships held their positions, weapons ready, crews waiting. Stood alone in the council chamber, her words hanging in the air like dust after an explosion. Then slowly, Admiral stepped forward. His old scales clicked against the metal floor. He walked past without looking at him and stood beside. "The human speaks truth," he said, his rough voice carrying across the communication channel. "I have fought in 100 wars. I have killed more beings than I can count. And for what? For fear. Fear that if we do not strike first, we will be struck down. Fear that has ruled us for 6,000 years." He turned to face the camera, his face filling screens across the fleet. "I am tired, tired of fear, tired of blood. The humans showed me something I had forgotten. There is more to existence than victory and death. There is beauty and poetry and connection, things I was taught to ignore." Stepped forward next, his silver skin reflecting the chamber's lights. "I joined the hegemony because I had no choice. My people were conquered long ago. We were told to serve or die, but this human," she served us tea. "She asked about our dreams. She treated us like equals, not subjects." One by one, more representatives moved to stand with. The observer rolled forward, his ancient body making grinding sounds against the floor. Several younger officers from various species joined them. Even some of the servant class, those who had been conquered and broken generations ago, found the courage to step out of the shadows. Watched in horror as his power crumbled before his eyes. "You are all fools," he spat. "You think this changes anything. The universe is cruel, the strong survive, the weak perish. That is the only truth that matters. Looked at him with something that surprised everyone: compassion. You are afraid, she said softly. You have been afraid for so long that you cannot imagine any other way to feel. But fear does not have to define you. It can be faced. It can be overcome. She reached into her bag and pulled out one of the photographs she had brought from Earth. It showed a city, tall buildings, crowded streets, people going about their daily lives. This is New York City, she explained. One of our largest cities. It was attacked many times throughout our history, destroyed, burned, terrorized. But every time we rebuilt it. Every time people returned. Because humans are stubborn. We refuse to let fear win, even when fear makes sense. She pulled out another photograph. This one showed people of different colors and backgrounds working together to build a house. These are volunteers, she continued. After disasters strike, strangers come from everywhere to help. They do not ask about nationality or religion or politics. They just help, because that is also what humans do. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. We are not saints. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars, genocides, cruelties that shame our entire species. But we have also created music that makes people cry with joy. We have built hospitals to heal strangers. We have risked our lives to save people we will never meet. Held up the book of poetry. We wrote these words because we needed to express things that logic could not contain: love and hope and sorrow and wonder. The universe is vast and cold and indifferent, so we created warmth. We created meaning. We chose to care, even when caring hurt. She turned to face directly. You asked what humanity's answer to your ultimatum would be. Here it is. The chamber fell completely silent. We will not surrender, said clearly. We will not give up our freedom or our future. That is not negotiable. Smiled coldly. Then you choose death. No, replied. We choose neither, because those are not the only options. She took a step toward him. We choose friendship. We choose alliance. We choose to reach out our hand to the hegemony and offer something no other species has ever offered: partnership based on mutual respect. Confused murmurs spread through the fleet. This was not supposed to happen. Conquered species did not offer partnerships. Think about it, continued, now addressing everyone. The hegemony has amazing technology. You have mastered space travel, energy production, countless wonders. But you have been stuck in the same patterns for 6,000 years. No new ideas, no new art, no new ways of thinking, just the same cycle of conquest and control. She smiled slightly. Humans are different. We change constantly. We argue and fight and disagree, yes, but we also create and innovate and imagine. We dream impossible dreams and then make them real. That is our gift. Spread her arms wide. Imagine what we could build together: your knowledge and our creativity, your stability and our chaos, your ancient wisdom and our young energy. We could create something neither of us could create alone. And what do you want in return? Admiral asked. Time, said simply. Time to grow and learn. Time to become worthy partners instead of just subjects. And respect. Not the respect that comes from fear, but the respect that comes from understanding. The observer spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. In 6,000 years, no species has ever proposed this. They have begged, fought, or submitted. None have offered partnership. Then it is time for something new, replied. The hegemony was born from fear, but it does not have to stay that way. You can choose to be different. You can choose to be better. She looked at all the faces watching her. Alien and strange, but somehow not so different from human faces. They showed doubt and hope and fear and wonder, the same emotions that filled human hearts. I am just one old woman, she said softly. I cannot make you change. I can only ask. I can only show you that there is another way. The choice is yours. Silence filled the fleet for a long moment. Then Admiral spoke. I call for a vote. Do we accept the human proposal for alliance, or do we proceed with destruction? Stepped forward angrily. This is against all protocol. The Council makes decisions, not the fleet. The Council has failed us, replied. It is time for everyone to have a voice. The voting began. Ship by ship, officer by officer, the fleet made its decision. Some voted for destruction. They were afraid of change, afraid of what might happen if they abandoned their old ways, but more voted for alliance. The humans' words had touched something inside them, something they had buried long ago. When the counting finished, the result was clear. 60% of the fleet chose alliance. 60% chose hope over fear. Stood alone, his supporters scattered. His power was broken. His certainty was shattered. Walked over to him. He expected mockery or triumph. Instead, she looked at him with gentle eyes. You are not evil, she said quietly. You are just scared, and that is okay. Being scared is part of being alive, but you do not have to let it control you. She held out her hand, an invitation, a chance. Stared at her small, wrinkled hand for a long time. Part of him wanted to slap it away. Part of him wanted to take it. In the end, he simply turned and walked away. Some battles could not be won or lost in a single moment. Some changes took time. Let him go. There would be other days for that conversation. As she walked back to her shuttle, Admiral stopped her. His face showed something that might have been a smile. I need to know something, he said. Was this humanity's plan all along? Send one old female to talk us into surrender. Laughed softly. It was a warm sound that echoed through the metal corridors. We had no plan. We were terrified. We sent me because I asked to go, because I wanted to understand you. Shook his head in amazement. You defeated the hegemony with questions and tea. I did not defeat anyone, corrected him. You defeated yourselves. Or rather, you freed yourselves. You just needed someone to remind you that freedom was possible. She reached the shuttle and turned back to look at the massive alien warship one last time. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting. Her people were waiting. They had no idea what had happened. They were probably still terrified. She would have quite a story to tell them. Thank you, said, appearing beside her, for everything. Patted his silver arm gently. Thank you for listening. That is all any of us can ask. She climbed into her shuttle and started the engines. As she flew away from the fleet, she looked back at the hundreds of ships that had come to destroy her world. They had wanted war. They had expected resistance or surrender. Instead, Earth had sent them something they never prepared for. A grandmother with tea, a book of poems, and an endless supply of questions. And in the end, that was enough. The stars no longer seemed so quiet. They seemed full of possibility, full of friends waiting to be made, full of stories waiting to be told. Smiled and set course for home. The real adventure was just beginning.